Over eight measures, 4 of them new and 4 of them extension of existing schemes were announced today by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. The idea was to extend support especially to those sectors hit even further by the second wave of the pandemic. A special mention and special allocation has been made for the sectors of for hospitals, that's for healthcare, as well as for tourism. So for hospitals, any new projects which are coming in areas outside of the 8 metros will get special support in terms of credit guarantee schemes extended by the government and which will be implemented by banks, of course. And the tourism sector is also getting some help. There is a 10 lakh rupee loan which will be given to travel agents recognized universally, as well as those for tour guides. They will get a 1 lakh rupee loan. Let's listen in first to what the Finance Minister said today.
The scheme will cover about 10,700 regional level tourist guides who are recognized by Ministry of Tourism and tourist guides who are recognized by state governments. Travel and tourism stakeholders, which is literally the terminology used to talk about travel agents, I suppose, who are recognized by Ministry of Tourism, will also be covered here. What do they get? They get 100% guaranteed credit of 10 lakhs for the TTSs who are agents or travel agencies, and 1 lakh for tourist guides who are licensed either by the regional or the state level authorities. Now, what is this credit being given to? It's really a retail kind of a loan wherein they can take this credit for whatever purpose they would want to use it for, whether it is for buying a vehicle, whether it is for any other expenditure that they may want to have to incur. So there are no processing charges. The waiver, a complete waiver will be given for any foreclosures or prepayment. Credit guarantee scheme to facilitate loans through the MFIs, microfinance institutions. We aim to reach out to 25 lakh persons who are absolutely smallest borrowers from the MFI, and this would be a maximum loan of 1.25 lakhs to an individual, and the rate will be at least 2% below the maximum rate which is prescribed by the RBI. So the focus of this will be on new lending and not on repayment of old loans. Clearly, all kinds of stressed accounts can also benefit from it, and that is why we have mentioned that all defaulters also, so long as they are 89 days or less, meaning if the default is only within the 89 days, even they get covered, which means only the NPAs will not be covered, stressed will also be covered. Now, this entire scheme will be till 31st March 2020 or till such a time the 7,500 crores of guarantee which is getting issued is exhausted. Either this or that, whichever is the earliest. The guarantee which is being given is up to 75% of the default amount, and this duration is for 3 years. The loan duration is for 3 years.
All right, I'm joined now by Mythili Bhusnurmath, Consulting Editor, ET Now, Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist, Care Ratings, and we'll also be speaking with Subhash Goyal, who's representing the tourism industry, to get his views on whether these SOPs are going to help this very battered sector. Let me begin, Mythili, by getting your views. A lot was being expected that there will be some kind of relief after the second wave, but is it just more of the same? An extension of a credit guarantee scheme, there won't be too much outgo up front. These will come by and will perhaps depend on what kind of offtake there is.
Hit the nail on the head, because that really is the disappointment in what the finance minister announced this afternoon. Because the fact is that in terms of actual outlay, which is really what the economy needs in terms of additional spending by the government, That is really missing. It's not the kind of big bang stimulus that one was hoping for an economy that has contracted 7.3% in the last year, and this year also is not expected to do very well. In fact, the GDP growth estimates have progressively been reduced downwards by almost every agency and brokerage. So, and we've just kind of barely recovered from the second wave. We're still in the, I wouldn't say the midst of it, but certainly we're not out of it. And there is talk rather of a third wave. At a time like this, when mobility is not really been fully restored, it is quite a bit of more of the same. The guarantee schemes, while good in themselves, are not sufficient. What you really need is more spending by the government to bring spending power back into the hands of people who have lost jobs, who have lost incomes. So that really is my angst at the moment, that we're having more guarantees, repetition. I mean, the finance minister talked about extending the food supply till November, which is something that the prime minister had announced earlier, power sector reforms. So I wish there had been a little bit more of spending, because yes, we did, our fiscal deficit did exceed the target, but it was not because government spent more. It was because revenues fell. In fact, I could just end with this, that in the RBI's annual report, they said that government announced various stimulus programs, total of which last year came to about 17.2 lakh crore. But the actual increase in spending was only 4 lakh crore. So if you look at that, the government announces a lot of measures, but in terms of actual outgo of money, which is what we really need, that is just a very, very small portion. And that will not be enough to spur the economy back into action.
You know, the question is that why are we treading the same path? Let me go across to Madan Sabnavis on this. And it's quite interesting because we've been having a similar conversation for nearly 18 months now, ever since the pandemic started. That is this the right way to stimulate the economy? Let me just take the example of a sector like tourism, and we'll get in Mr. Goyal in just a bit. But Madan, the only way the tourism sector is going to revive is if people are free to travel. The only way people are going to take advantage of a waiver in tourist visa fees is if they are allowed to come in and enough people are vaccinated. Isn't that where the real concern is?
No, in fact, what you're talking about tourism is right. But then if we say that, can we open up the economy at a time when the virus is still spreading? I think then we say that social distancing cannot be maintained when you're talking of tourism in a practical sense. So therefore, having such a measure today may not really serve too much of purpose. But we should remember one thing, that to be fair to the finance minister, she started off by saying that these are relief packages. It is not really meant to be a stimulus. So I think lots of us were expecting a kind of a stimulus, which personally I was not, because going by the report card of the government in the last 1 year, I think the government only provides an enabling environment. It does not spend too much of money. It does not really decide to go in for some big bang expenditure. So against this background, I think there are two questions which need to be asked. And I think one is which Mythili has also already answered. But let's go to the first question, is that will these measures be useful? The answer is to the extent that people want credit. There is demand in a particular sector. Getting a kind of a credit guarantee from the government will definitely be useful. Now, my sense is that there's not too much of demand. And even if you look at the earlier scheme of 3 lakh crores, SMEs took around 2 lakh crores. We had to extend it for the 26 sectors which went in for one-time restructuring. We extended it for tourism. So probably by increasing this to another 1.5 lakh crores, I really don't know if there's going to be enough appetite, because I think SMEs are also quite cognizant of the fact that when there's no demand, you don't want to take on debt. The second part, of course, is in terms of relief. I think that has been a favorite of the government to give more relief to the poorer people, poorer sections. I think that's probably a progressive move. And then there was a third part of this entire package in terms of medium to long-term reforms. I don't think they were really required at this point of time. But yes, to the extent that they start working after 2-3 years, I think it could probably help. Now, the second part, of course, is that whether all this will help to revive growth in the current year. The answer, as Mythili has said, is probably not.
You know, Subhash Goyal is with us, and from what the finance minister said, this will help about 11,000 notified and recognized travel agencies as well as tour operators. So you have 10 lakh rupees for the agencies, you have 1 lakh rupees for the guides, and these are not supposed to be revival measures but also relief measures. One of the things, in fact, which MOS Anurag Thakur mentioned was that if people and these companies wanted to move to something else. At least they'd have some capital. Is there a lifeline which is going to help those stuck in the tourism sector right now?
Firstly, it's too less and too late. And secondly, about 10 million people are already jobless. A few 100,000 have already, become bankrupt or changed their tourism business. And how is it going to help? People don't want to go into a debt trap. You see, today, how will the tourist guide who has not received a single tourist for last 1.5 years, for what will he take a loan? And at what rate of interest? You see, you can easily give him, there are not many, whatever government guides are there, recognized guides are there, give them 1 lakh rupees each. Why can't you do it? No, it's not our policy. This is Disaster Management Act. People are dying. People are dying of hunger. If it was not for the Gurdwaras, a lot of people would have died. You see, so what I'm saying is, if you are serious in reviving the economy, you need to do 2 or 3 things. You're giving 5 lakh tourist visas free. Those who will take the visas, they can afford to take a flight. They can afford to pay $20-30 for a visa. But at least it's a good move. I'm not saying. I appreciate at least the finance minister and the prime minister are thinking towards the tourism industry. But it is only lip service, because this money can be given to the small and medium operators who are really dying. The tourist taxi driver or the tourist transport bus driver, the tourist guide, he has no business. For what will he take the loans? He has already taken loans which he can't pay and the loan should not be more than 3 or 4%. How can you, when there is no business? To revive the business, you need to do 2 things immediately. Those people who have been vaccinated twice, both the vaccinations, give them e-tourist visas, fix a date for the e-tourist visa, announce it. And announce the date for scheduled international flights. Because unless and until the flights are there, paper visas are just, when we had the lockdown, there were more than 1 million people holding visas which became useless paper. At least extend those visas free of cost for another 2 years or so. And even if you charge a nominal amount, we don't mind, but give a deadline. You see, you have to open the economy. If you want to revive the economy, you have to open it out. If you don't want to give out doles, understand. You want to make it enable, but how will you make it enable if you keep the doors closed? So open the borders, at least to those.
1 second, Mr. Goyal, let me come to your point. You're okay. So you've said 2 or 3 things. One minute, Mr. Goyal. Let's just go into this in detail. You said 2 or 3 things here. The first thing that you're saying is, why are you giving these as loans? Just give 1 lakh rupees. Why are you expecting to give this as loans? And then you're saying that, generously, you're saying I will waive processing fees, but who's going to take a loan when they have no visibility on income? Is that your biggest concern?
Yes, that's a very big concern, and that's a practical concern. And prevention is better than cure. You put some money to enforce that anyone without a mask is fined. Don't do the Char Dham Yatra like you did the Kumbh Mela. Prevent this third wave from coming. Otherwise, our businesses are going to be ruined, and more people, I can assure you, will die of economic starvation than will die of COVID-19 if we don't open up. You see, people travel to Africa with yellow fever. People can travel to India. A lot of countries have opened up. Russia, Ukraine, Mauritius, UAE is opening up. Thailand is opening up. A lot of countries are opening up. So why can't we open up for people who have been vaccinated? Otherwise, what's the point of having the vaccination if you don't open up? Our airports, our tourist transport, our hotels have world-class, touchless.
I just want to get Madan, let me get your. Okay. No, opening up is secondary. There is a lot of appetite for domestic tourism as well, and that tussle is on right now. We know that tussle is on, where people want to get away for the weekend. Domestic tourism got a boost in those few months where we opened up at the end of last year and early this year. So that appetite is there. Let's talk about, e-visas and visa fees a little later. But Madan, the question is the principle of it. Are we missing the trees for the wood? Here, people are battered. Giving them loans easily may not be the answer. That has been a recurring theme, isn't it, since the last 1.5 years?
Tamanna, that giving loans is not a solution. But then, as what is being suggested, that you give 1 lakh rupees to every person in the tourism industry, there are so many sectors which are affected. If you look at the restaurants, you look at the malls, you look at the aviation sector, lots of people have been affected. Is it actually practical for the government to give 1 lakh rupees to each and every individual in these enterprises? So we look at the SMEs, we know lots of unemployment is taking place in the SME segment. So giving 1 lakh rupees is an easy thing to state, but practically speaking, is it something which can be managed? We actually had the chance of doing these cash transfers last year, but the government chose not to do it for whatever reason. Maybe it was ideology. So therefore, expecting it now for just the tourism sector may probably not be feasible. So everybody would like to make sure that people who are out of employment get this 1 lakh. Now, in terms of the tourism part, which is being spoken of, I think they are making. I just saw on your channel that SI is making a petition to Europe to allow the Indian Covishield to work. But why is it not working in India? Today, I've gotten both my jabs of Covishield, but I'm not allowed to travel in all parts of the country. I have to get an RT-PCR. So I think we first need to clean up our own house here before we say that our Covishield or our vaccination should have international acceptance.
No, that you've led me in beautifully to my next discussion, but that is, of course, a bigger story about whether we're seeing vaccine discrimination. I will come to that in a bit. I want to focus on this a little more because, Mythili, important point that Subhash Goyal made. He said ki humko loan mat do, give us the money. And like Madan said, the tourism sector is not the only one that is battered. If you open up that floodgate of those who say that we need cash relief, there is a long, long line. Till then, till we can find a solution, is the only way to dole out these little sops and hope that the virus recedes, infection recedes, the economy opens up, and then things sort of take care of themselves?
No, we come back to the same solution. I know the ultimate answer is to speed up our vaccination program. The longer you delay, it's not going to be possible to open up the economy, because even if I am vaccinated, as long as the vast majority of the country is not vaccinated and they are not following COVID appropriate behavior, the risk is always there. And Mr. Goyal talked about tourists, guides not wanting to take loans. The question is, if the tourist guide has not seen a single tourist, which bank will want to give him a loan? So on both sides, you have the issue. The tourist guide does not want to take a loan because he has no income. The bank will not want to give him a loan because how is he going to repay the loan? So this is really not the answer. And the government, as Madan said, cannot possibly give 1 lakh to every person who is distressed in a situation like this, because there are far too many people. The country cannot afford that, except for those who are genuinely below the poverty line. There you could give some cash transfers. But the ultimate answer only is vaccination. The US has opened up only because it has been able to vaccinate such an overwhelming percentage of its population that people don't fear to move around. So I think the answer is only that. What we are doing right now is only making small little tweaks which will really not get us anywhere.
I want to clarify one point.
Yeah, when we're talking about pace of vaccination. Yes, go ahead.
No, I agree that vaccination is most important, but I've been misunderstood. There are only a few thousand tourist guides which are recognized by the government of India, and government is saying 1 lakh rupees loan to them. I said instead of loan, it's a small amount. You can give them grants. I didn't say for every businessman. No, I said for the other business people, you have to revive the industry. Unless the industry is revived, as rightly said, that if I have Covishield, if I'm not traveling within the country, there should be a uniform policy that all those people who have been vaccinated twice, and you have an Aadhaar card, you have a link with Aadhaar card, you have a link with the passport, they should be allowed to travel freely. But we must enforce that protocols are followed. And secondly, we must announce a date. Maybe you announce it after 3 months, that whatever may happen for those people who have been vaccinated, we will give them visa, say from 1st of September, 1st of October, I don't mind. And those who are already holding the visas, we'll extend it free of cost. Doesn't matter, because, the visas were valid, but there was a lockdown. So, but you must announce a date for starting e-tourist visas and a date for starting international flights. That will revive the economy, and that will have a multiplier effect, because wherever the tourist goes in the remotest areas, much below the poverty line, even below starvation line, tourists help, because they buy food, they buy chai, they buy anything. So So it has a multiplier effect on the economy, and 1 out of every 9 jobs that are going to be created will be created in tourism industry. It's the world's largest employment generator. So you must have a practical approach towards things,
No doubt.
not an eyewash, because you see, this is not going to help anyone. It is giving a psychological relief, yes. So those people who are thinking of dying of or who are dying of depression, they'll get a breather, a little oxygen. That's all. Vaccination and allowing people who have been vaccinated. Otherwise, there's no point even doing vaccination if you're still going to keep the borders closed and the doors closed.
So let me just give some additional context here to the vaccination question. A very important affidavit was filed by the government in the Supreme Court over the weekend, talking about what their vaccine supply looks like, and that needs to be looked at in a little bit of detail. Will we be able to keep up pace? Will vaccinations really hit that momentum in July, or will we be stuck at around 40 to 50 lakh vaccinations a day? That's also a good pace, but to really make a difference, we need to reach that 90 lakh 1 crore figure per day, and that's really where we need to focus. But meanwhile, Mr. Goyal, of course, we feel the pain of the tourism sector. There are so many sectors which really cannot see a silver lining right now. Maybe allowing those who are vaccinated fully to book hotels and move a little freely may help, but then the real target must be to vaccinate everyone sooner than later. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the first discussion this evening.